Hello, everyone. This is Malcolm Eastman, and today we are going to be going over multi-area OSPF in Cisco's Packet Tracer. So, in this lab, we're going to be configuring three different OSPF areas: Area 0, Area 1, and Area 2. And we're going to basically give every router here the ability to communicate with each other, no matter what area they're in, right? So I've done a video on OSPF before, and that was basically just using one area to configure, sorry, to communicate routing information through OSPF using one area. And that area I used was area 0. But as you can see here, we have three, right? And the configuration is not that difficult to do with multiple areas, right? You just really have to take your time and make sure you're doing it right, making sure you're having the IP addresses correctly, entering the IP addresses correctly, and making sure you're putting the correct areas, right? Because if you mess up the areas or the IP addresses, then this will not work, right? So I've already done all of the initial configuration. So all of these have their IP addresses. Two of them I went ahead a little bit and added the loopback interfaces to two of them. But other than that, all of these here have their IP addresses set, right? So I'm going to start on router 2, and we're going to start in area 2, right? So the first thing that we want to do, since we've already configured, well, not the first thing, but the first thing you want to do is make sure you configure the loopback interface. And we've already done that on this one, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to not enter, but we're going to enter our configuration terminal, and then we're going to go into OSPF, right? OSPF 1, and then we're going to advertise the loopback interface. And this is router 2, so it's going to be 2.2.2.2. And again, since we're working with OSPF, it's going to be a wildcard mask, subnet mask. And again, remember, we want to make sure we are doing the correct area. This is area 2. Let's double check. And yes, this is area 2, as you can see right here. The other interface that we want to advertise this one. We want to advertise 192.100.110.0, right? So again, that's going to be network 192.100.110.0, and it's a WAC 24. So a WAC 24 a wildcard subnet mask is 0.0.0.255. And again, remember, it's area 2. Want to make sure we get that right. We're going to hit exit. We're going to hit N to drop all the way back down to enable. And then we're going to hit exit again. Why do we do that? Even in a packet tracer lab, we want to get into the habit of making sure we're exiting out of our connection. So just imagine that I'm in either a console connection or I have a secure shell connection, and I'm making sure I hit end and then exit again to make sure I close the connection. So now I'm going to router 1, right? And again, this one already has the loopback interface configured. So enable, and then we're going to do conf T, and then we're going to head into OSPF. So that is going to be router OSPF 1, and then we want to advertise the loopback, which is 1.1.1.1, and then that's going to be, again, a WAC 20, well, it's a wildcard of 0.0.0.0 since it's a loopback interface. And loopback interfaces use a WAC 30 a WAC 32 subnet mask. So this wildcard is going to be, sorry, this area is going to be area 0. Put that area 0. And then I want to advertise 192.100.110.0 dot, or not dot, but wildcard mask, we want to go to wildcard O.O.O dot 255, and then that's going to be area, this is area 2. And as you can see here, our OSPF adjacency worked. These two routers are now communicating using OSPF, right? But I'm not done yet on this router, right? Because now I also want to advertise, oops. Now I also want to advertise 192.100.120.0. I want to advertise this interface here, right? This is a WAC 30, which is basically what you actually would be using when you're connecting a router to another router. It's a good use of IP addresses. This is just a lab, but you never would want to use a WAC 24 subnet mask when you have a router to router connection. That's just a waste of IP addresses because essentially you only need 2 IP addresses for each connection, right? So the command is going to be network 192.100.120.0. And a wildcard mask for a /30 is O.O.O.3. And then this one is area 0. Right? One thing I want to bring up, I talk a lot about making sure you're checking your work and making sure you do it right, right? So you don't have to do it twice. Something that I have that I still use today is I have a subnet calculator. And I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but I want to mention it again, right? So I have this subnet calculator on my phone, right? That I can use to see different IP that I can use to see different subnet masks, right? And it shows me the usable IP addresses, it shows me the broadcast address, it shows me the last usable address, the range of addresses, as well as the network and the broadcast address. Utilize these tools, right? They're available to you. Most of the time they're free. I also have a network analyzer on my phone as well that I've used from time to time, and they're useful. These are tools that you can use because, again, these are all tools that will help you do the job right and not have to do the job twice. Okay. Just wanted to really touch on that really quick because I think it's super important to, as a IT professional or just any professional, to have a really good toolkit so that you can always address any problem that may come up in the workplace or in life. Okay, let's keep it moving. So that's all the configurations for this side. Now we're going to move over to router 3 and router 4. Before I do that, let's exit out of this. It ends and exits. Let's go to router 3. First thing we want to do on router 3 is create that loopback interface. So that's going to be interface loopback 1. And then we're going to add our IP address to our loopback interface, which is going to be 3.3.3, since this is router 3. And then this is going to be 255.255.255.255. All right, now we're going to hit exit, and then we're going to hit router, OSPF1, network. That's going to be 3.3.3.3. And then again, since it's a WAC 32, it's going to be a O.O.O wildcard. This is an area 0. So I want to make sure, yep. Area 0. And then let's take care of our point-to-point. So that's going to be the next command is going to be network 192.100.120.0, and then this is going to be a WAC 30. So the wildcard is O.O.O.3, and then this is going to be area 0. Okay. And then there we go. As you can see right here, we have our OSPF adjacency, we got our link, right, with router one over here. But again, I'm not done here. I have one more interface that I want to, one more interface that I want to advertise, and that's going to be network 192.0.100, sorry, .0.0.0, and then that's a WAC 24, so that's O.O.O.O.255, and then this one is area 1. Now we are done with router 3. Exit, and then we're going to go to router 4. Right, so our last router we got to configure in this little lab of ours. So conf T, interface loopback 1. And then we're going to put IP add, and then we're going to do our IP address 4.4.4.255, sorry, 255.255.255.255. All right, and we're going to hit exit. Exit, and then we're going to hit router, OSPF 1, network 4.4.4.4, O.O.O.O for the wildcard mask, area 1. And then network 192.100.0.0 WAC 24 wildcard mask. And then this is also area 1. And then here, now we also have another OSPF adjacency. So I want to show you some show commands. Before we ping, I want to show you some show commands. So let me hit end. So let's do show IP OSPF neighbors. So as you can see, we have a neighbor. Our neighbor is showing us 3.3.3. That's the neighbor. So that's router 3, right? Because that's our neighbor ID. That's our interface loopback with router 3, right? And we can see here where the interface, the IP address, right, and the state. So now I want to go on, let's go on router 1, right? So because I want you to see the 2 neighbors that I have with this router. So show IP OSPF neighbors. So on this router, because this router is connected in 2 different areas, right? In router area 0 and area 2. So it's seeing router 2, which is over here, and it's also seeing router 3, which is over here, right? Because they're both connected, right? They're both able, and they're both using OSPF, so they form a neighbor adjacency, right? Another command I want to do is show IP protocols. And in IP protocols, we can see routing networks, right? So we see 1.1.1 for area 0. And then you see here, these are the commands that I used for, I did 2 for area 0, right? No, actually, sorry, I didn't do 2 for area. Yes, I did do 2 for area 0, because one was the loop back, and then one was for this point-to-point connection over here. And then I did another one for area 2 over here. And it's showing you all of the route, all these showing you the distance, the last update, and it's even showing our right here, it's giving us our router ID, right? So now what I want to do is let's try and see if we can talk to the other routers, right? Let's start with the router that's closest to us, which should be router 2. So let's do 192.110.2. And as you can see, we get a full ping from router 2. Now let's try to ping router 4. 192.100.0.2. And I gotta add ping to the first. And as you can see, we also get success, right? So we're able to communicate to all of these different routers here using multi-area OSPF, right? Again, a very key point about this configuration, you have to get the areas correct, and you have to make sure you get um, those IP addresses correct and the wildcards. If you mess up any of that stuff, then the configuration is not going to work, and you're not going to get pings, and your devices and your routers are not going to be able to communicate with one another, right? So again, remember that OSPF is a linked state uh, dynamic routing protocol, right? So when we're configuring our network commands on OSPF, basically what we're saying is we're taking, like when with router two start to send out OSPF hello packets to router one and say, hey, are you using OSPF? Right, router one. And router one would say, yes, I am. I am using OSPF. And router two would be like, cool, so am I. Here's all the routing information that I have, right, in my routing table. And router one would be like, oh, wow, thank you. I'm now going to share my routing information with you as well. So router two doesn't have a route, any type of route to router three, but router one does. So again, when router one says, hey, here's my routing information, router two is like, oh, you also have an OSPF neighbor in router three. Now I now can speak to router three because we're all using OSPF. That only happens when you configure everything correctly, right? Again, it doesn't matter if they're in the same area or if they're in a different area. You have to make sure you configure the areas right, the IP address is right, and the wildcard address is right. Some people kind of get confused about the wildcard subnet mask, but again, that's why I say you can utilize something like an IP calculator that will show you the wildcard address for these different subnet masks, right? It's very useful, right? Nobody's going to get upset at the fact that you're using a wildcard, sorry, not a wildcard, a subnet mask or subnet calculator. Again, we want to do the job right. We don't want to do it wrong, right? We don't want to have to go back and do double the work because we couldn't take 2 minutes to double check, right? I think it's really really good to have some things like this on your phone and at your fingertips. Because sometimes you may not have the ability to have a conversation with somebody. Let's say you're a remote worker, you might not have nobody you can say, hey, I don't know what a WAC 32 subnet mask, sorry, a wildcard subnet mask would be. Well, you can, you know, use that calculator or use Google, whatever online resource you decide to use. So definitely make sure you load up your IT toolkit with tools like that to make your job a lot easier and a lot less stressful, right? So again, this is a configuration and demonstration of multi-area OSPF, right? And making sure we understand how to configure it, making sure we're configuring the correct areas, IP addresses, and subnet masks using the correct wildcard masks for those subnet masks. And again, taking our time and understanding how OSPF works, right? So this has been my video on multi-area OSPF. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Type my name, Malcolm Eastman. You'll find me there. Or you can reach out to me through email at malcolm@malcolmeastman.tech. Thank you. And I hope you guys learned something. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.